for most of us. Ooh, I kind of wanted to prop the gimbal up here, but I don't think it would be safe to do so. So, hello and welcome back to Auckland. I had a free morning before I am heading down to Wellington, and I just thought, the tour that I offered the other day, I really enjoyed, but there's quite a lot more to see along the bay, and I thought it might be fun just to carry on a little bit. Good morning. Hi there. It's now, hi, Diane. Hi, Anna. Nice to see you. Now, I want everyone, please, to enjoy this really sharp haircut that I got from a very nice young man who just came to New Zealand about 6 months ago. And they have real old fashioned barber shops here. And I didn't really need a haircut, but I like old fashioned barber shops. But I'm going to have to wear my hat because I got a little sunburned yesterday. And so I kind of feel like I need to wear my hat, you see. Nice, you. Um, but I just was enjoying having the nice soft haircut. So it's hi Emily, nice to see you. Yeah, it is very short. And like I say, I didn't really need it, but we have a big birthday celebration happening. And I like going to barbershops around the world. So yeah, it is short. But yes, yesterday I did make it, as you saw. Hi, Brendan. Hi, everyone. Hi, Justina. You saw that I made it to Hot Water Beach. Now it was nearly 3 hours driving, and when you drive in New Zealand, there's no straight roads. It's 173 kilometers. Call it 100 miles. But that took yeah 3 hours. But it was just lovely. Hi, hey, say hi to Detroit for me. Hi, Jay. Um, so it was a really, really lovely drive. Um, and I have been there before, but 20 years ago. And I went out to the beach and people had dug the hole. So, like I say, I really wanted to do a live video, but it was so many young people in bathing suits and everything. I didn't want to walk around with a camera. So, hi, Nicole. So, but it was really nice. But I spent about an hour, like not longer. And I got into Hupples and then I was body surfing. And I didn't mention, I not that I need to mention, I kind of tweaked my back last week just before I flew here. It doesn't happen often, but I did. And then of course I sat on a plane for 15 hours. It's gorgeous day here. And so the yesterday driving for 6 hours and swimming and body surfing, I woke up this morning. So I've just been stretching in the gym and then I wandered down. So yeah, it's not even a terrible ouch, but it's just one of those things. Anyway, I'm back down in the harbor. And like I say, I finished a tour here the other day. And so I thought I'd carry on. There are cruise ships. Obviously, the cruise industry is just booming here. Now, that is a smaller ship. And I wonder if it goes into some of the smaller bays. I remember, yeah, some Aspen probably, at home, I would just cold plunge, but that's okay. I mean, fly down to Wellington and then I get picked up by my family down there. Well, thank you, Karen. Yeah, it does matter. Oh, little ferry coming in. So lots of ferries. I was going to go over this morning on one of these boats to an island, which is really neat because they have a Maori experience over there and zip line. But you know what? I've got to fly later. I think I'm just going to take it kind of easy on the body. Um, and so, no, but it's just nice to walk around. And yes, I'm staying covered up because the sun is sharp here. They always famously talk about the hole in the ozone down here. But yesterday at the beach, I mean, they have all the surf life saving, I mean, it's such a beach culture, but they had signs up saying that the UV was on extreme and say I was there less than an hour and I'm pretty red on my shoulders. So I just wanted to show this to you. It's a very interesting sign. Now it's a bit of a shame because it says the water quality in this area is poor and unsuitable for swimming or water activities. Avoid collecting and eating shellfish or other seafood. Now the reason I want to mention that is the larger writing is of course Maori, and then they have it in English. And this is a big change from when I used to hang out in New Zealand, when I used to come down here a lot when my grandmother was still with us. I think that's fascinating. But when I'm staying with my relatives down in Wellington, they're actually around in Lower Hutt, place called Lowry Bay, beautiful bay. And there will be people, whenever the tide's kind of mid level, people, but this is just right in here because it really is a working port, right? For the most part, it isn't. But there will be people, many with indigenous roots, standing right in the bay collecting shellfish. Hi, Han. Thank you very much. Hi, Mary Lou. Thank you, Annie. Nice to see you here. And so they literally will be collecting it. So the water yesterday was sparkling clean. It would just be right here in this harbor. Keep in mind, a city of 1.5 million people. This is sort of their inner harbor, their piers. So, you think about the inner harbor in Vancouver, other big ports, the same sort of thing. So yeah, I wandered down. I mean, there's the famous tower, which I showed you the other day. Here's the old ferry building, which feels so colonial and period. Now it is, Auckland's interesting, friendly, and New Zealand's got this wonderful laid back vibe, much more laid back than I think it used to be once upon a time. Obviously, there's tourists everywhere here because of all the cruise ships everywhere and nice diversity. Now, the neighborhood I'm staying in, which is really just the top of the hill, um, John, I think it's only polluted right there. Hey, there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry. I just have to give a shout out. There is a celebrity here on board, Richard Pauly, who you have met on virtual tours with me several times. He was, of course, my boss when I began guiding years ago. He's also one of my very dearest friends. And he's going to a conference in Malta, which is one of the most crowded countries in the world. I think it's fourth or fifth, Richard. The most crowded place, of course, is Macau. I'm just on the side. But but lovely to be here. So I will be seeing Richard Polly in about 6 weeks, I think. In fact, I'll be staying at his place in London. And so I don't know where he's gonna stay. But I don't know, Richard, when you were last down here. Um, is that right? Your friend's heading down to New Zealand. Yeah, I mean it's of course, well, there's a lot of things happening with New Zealand. It's considered, of course, one of the safest countries in the world. It is so far outside of all the conflictual zones. The economy, I mean, there's a lot of construction going on here. But one of the challenges, which I mentioned on the tour the other day, is wages are not particularly high and costs are distinctly high. And I thought I would just share one with you. Yesterday, I rented a vehicle. Now, I rented it last minute, but to rent a vehicle, and again, give me a truck, so I didn't need something that big, but it cost 250 New Zealand dollars. It's about 175 US for the day. And then when I topped up the fuel when I got back, that was another 70. So I mean, it was an expensive day out just to drive around. And when I had looked, when I flew down here, originally I was just going to rent a car and drive down to Wellington, which again is where all my family are. But it was going to be $2,000 to rent a car for I can't remember how many days I put in. So then I thought, "Okay, I'll just take really 3.5 days here and fly down." So, it's definitely not cheap being here. Um, Food, of course, you don't tip in this culture. And although I have left the auto tip and but it's so from that point of view, when you see a price, it looks very expensive by a Canadian perspective or an American perspective. But remember, that's inclusive of tax and tip. This is so fancy. This is Manuka honey, the gold standard of honey. Um, yeah, and then Movenpick you might be familiar with. There used to be a really nice Movenpick in Toronto when it closed, which is such a shame. But really, what I wanted to come and share with everyone is right after I left you the other day, I was meeting friends and family for lunch, and they came over, and they've got, of course, all those incredible sailboats that they have here. So you might remember. Now, I have done tours, and I've done at least one or two virtual tours right in Newport, Rhode Island. So if you're familiar with Newport, Rhode Island, you know what I'm getting to here. Newport is the site of the America's Cup, which went on for something like 138 years, and it won by the United States every time until New Zealand won it. Oops, sorry, someone just fell over. That's okay. I'm just lots of people to help. And so in 1995, New Zealand had, I think it was called Kiwi Magic, and they went and won the America's Cup. And of course, all the research that goes into the hulls of these ships. Now, this is absolutely a millionaire's game. I mean, so much so that I personally find it somewhat unappealing. I mean, I once took sailing lessons on a lake in Calgary, but I mean, this stuff is, real science. But I want to come and show this to you because they've got this is interesting as well. Artists explore a change in Antarctica. And so yesterday, right after, day before, when I finished this tour, I really wanted to come down and show this inner harbor here. So laying down the challenge, fresh from New Zealand's first America's Cup entry in 1987, Sir Michael Fay launched a surprising and unconventional challenge by the Mercury Bay Boating Company with the new Cups holders, the San Diego Yacht Club. Now, again, I don't know enough about these ships, but I do know the science behind them is incredible. And there was sailing. Of course, I thought the Paris Olympics were excellent. Some of the best Olympics, Summer Olympics I've ever watched. I'm more of a Winter Olympics guy. But remember, they also had the surfing down in Tahiti. And the other day when I was having lunch, there was a couple speaking French, but quite a different accent. And so I turned around and she had a tattoo around her arm and they were Tahitian and they have flown over here. Tahiti's economy is very much driven with vanilla. is a big part. Very expensive. I have not been to Tahiti, but of course, the last time I was in Polynesia was here in well in Easter Island. This this business gets really really naughty. I wouldn't remember any of those knots. I do remember my climbing knots. Now there's the famous tower up there. Any picture you see of Auckland is that tower. And again, no city walls or anything like that because there just never was a need for it. Now the boat that I put or the ship that I put, oh, there's one around the side. Good. They have ones that goes out and do tours, so you can have the experience of being on these really high speed sailing vessels. Look at this. Oh, this is the Seabin project. It's proudly owned and managed by the Viaduct Harbor. The Seabin is a floating device that has been installed in the viaduct, letting it collect rubbish in the water. I've seen these sort of things. There they are, just down below, and they use gravity and they'll suck in anything that's out floating in the water. So that was a pretty darn good thing to have. So I am going to decide which one of these pubs around here will be lunch today. And I see places serving tacos, but you know what? I just got back from Mexico. That's really when I'm down in this part of the world. My friend Richard would know all about this. I can't. But New Zealand is, of course, famous for its lamb. And I did have lamb the other day. Um, and I actually had some escargot, which was yummy. Yeah, so I'm not the really famous one was parked here the other day. It's obviously out giving a tour, but then all of these ships are made for very, very serious sailing, if that's your thing, which I really like kayaking, but the Auckland Harbor sailing, let's come and have a look at this. So needless to say, I mean, it's a harbor city. So they do 1.5 hour inner harbor cruises. And you know, say I was sort of thinking something like that today, but I think I'm just gonna give my back a bit of a rest. So I'm just now doing some pull-ups. But that's all good. I'm really not on. So this is not this Explorer boat gives a sense of those really fast sailing yachts, but this one is not the really fast one. I recognized it as soon as I saw it. And so New Zealand won. I think Switzerland won the America's Cup once, and of course they didn't have ocean, so they couldn't host the competition. But you're talking about millions go into these things, and people get busted for scuba diving down and to look at the hulls and that sort of thing. It is, pretty fascinating. But when you're a major maritime country, now I mentioned the other day when my father arrived to this country way back in 1947. I think they were 3 months or 4 months on a ship. Now you either get here by cruise ship. There's no ferry from Australia, which is a bit of a shame. It'd be nice to bring cars over, but they're so busy trying to protect their biomass here. Interestingly, when you do drive here, I'm going to say something a little yucky, but when you do drive here, you see a huge number of possums that are dead on the roads. And of course, possums are marsupials. The only native mammal to New Zealand is the bat. And I still wonder if that maybe came over with Polynesians or something. So it was a bird-based natural environment for years. But in the 1840s, 1847, they introduced possums here to try and create a fur trade. Remember, 1840 was also the Treaty of Waitangi, February 6th. That's what we were celebrating the other day. They introduced possums, and possums are actually one of the biggest risks to the environment. And yes, the reality is, Justine was saying poor possums, and I totally understand. I mean, I feel sorry for the poor animals. Now you see them all over Australia as well. But so many of the roads, I mean, you do sort of have a motorway driving out of Auckland, but very quickly, because this is a very, very hilly country, well, particularly the North Island. South Island is quite different because it has Alps down there and a coastline. But down here, you very quickly are just on these like really windy roads. And unfortunately, I was alone yesterday because I would have been nice to have, Finn with me or someone to hold the camera and show you how windy the road's like. You focus when you're driving down here, but it's like foliage right up to the edge of the road, which of course for any kind of animal. But that's why when you fly in here, they're so strict about the biocontrol. Literally you have to declare absolutely everything. And it's very common after a flight, you keep some almonds or some peanuts, nothing. Right? And there's no excuses. They've got you every opportunity to throw things away. And then they do. So the passport control is nothing, but the bio control is where they're very serious. And immediate $400 fine if you have anything like an apple or whatever. So, that's makes sense because everything can grow here. So, it's such a challenge when you introduce some kind of species into an environment like this. because of course everything had arrived from um, from the air historically. Sorry, I'm just looking. There's a little red flag there with a red cross on it. To me, that's the flag of Tonga. There's also a little Swedish flag. I wonder if someone's got Tongan roots. So the country of Tonga is everything's hours away, but you fly from here about 2.5 hours to get to Fiji. So there's some nice apartments down around the harbor here. You can see why this would be a lovely place to live. And then where the Sky Tower is up there, then you go straight up a hill, and then you get up to the neighborhood where I started the other tour, right by the big pride flags. Very progressive and open, very, very friendly to LGBTQ plus people. So you know, a massive change from the old kind of colonial. I know it's a little windy, but I thought I'd wander around and take you up to the pier. And you can see from this angle, actually, you can see a little better maybe when I get around a little closer. You'll see there's one of the ships up there. That's really the big racing keel on it. Um, and that amazing amount of work. Another one, if you're into the sailing culture, the maritime culture, and the clouds aren't they lovely? Yes. And it's a very sharp sun here. Like I have zinc on my face, and I have the hat on and the sunglasses. Really feel like I need to. Um, I dislike graffiti a lot, but someone wrote here, "Cocaine sucks," and I totally agree. You know, I've spent so much of my life. Hey, Trisha. Um, Hi there. Hey, everyone. So Trisha's here. Trisha sent me a message, but I'm not coming back through Auckland. So, be down in Wellington later on here, and then I will be back. Hi, Trisha. Well, thanks for coming and say hi. It was so nice catch up with Louise the other day too. And she's just busy because of all these cruise ships, right, doing the day tours. But yeah, I mean, driving over to Coromandel is just so nice. Would have actually been nice to go and spend the night over there, but anyway, I have to catch a flight down later to Wellington, which is an hour and 10 minutes. Wellington, you may or may not know. Well, Trisha knows, of course, but it's the windiest capital city in the world, famously. And the airport, it's sort of out on a peninsula, and then you go through a tunnel into town. And it's a bit cooler down there. I think it's about 16 down there. Whereas right now, I'd say it's probably 24, 25 degrees here, Celsius, which is just, I mean, honestly, it's about perfect, the perfect temperature. Uh, And and yeah, you could tell. I mean, I crashed early again yesterday because I'd driven for hours and everything. But this morning, you could tell that people had really been out partying last night, but in a fun way. The other thing that I'm finding, the other language I'm finding myself speaking here all the time is Spanish. I have met three Argentines, two Spaniards. I mean, Argentina, of course, Southern Hemisphere country, rugby culture, and of course, the Argentine economy is very shaky. So that's been, that kind of international mix here has changed from what I remember in the past. And, a country of 5.2 million, just shy of a million are Maori. So that's putting, about 18, 19% of the population as being indigenous. Moreover, Auckland here specifically is a major hub for people who live out on all the different islands. Um, so there's places like Nui, Nuie. Read about that tiny little island, and it's kind of a New Zealand protectorate. And then, of course, you have Fiji and Tonga and the Cook Islands. Cook Islands, I believe, Trisha, use New Zealand dollars. So there's massive spread, and there's that keel. You can kind of see it from this angle. Those ships actually look like yeah, huge investment to go and put one of these things in. Yeah, there it is. In the America's Cup sailing experience, right there. Now, I did mention the other day that they've kept their traditional flag, but I do see another flag around quite a lot. And of course, really the fern leaf is so much an image of New Zealand, and the black and white. Of course, the All Blacks, the I think indisputably the most famous rugby team in the whole wide world. And I must admit, I do cheer for them. But here's the deal they have on here. Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed the mix of people. Of course, I come from a very multicultural world as well. Um, but it's neat being here. And also, even though you can tell that people have been out partying the night before, of course, this country produces. Yeah, there you go. Thanks, Trish. This country produces a disproportionate number of outstanding athletes, um, particularly things like rowing and triathlon. And so this morning I saw people out on their bikes, and those really good bikes. So it's a real value system. I wanted to come on, but there's a little mural down here. But these are obviously all the day tours on the buses out from the cruise ships. Let's take a little wander down there. Oh, somebody's getting married. Gosh, run in and talk her out of it. but yeah, we're going to be having a birthday party in Wellington, which I'm looking forward to, of course. Well, that's why I'm coming here. Nice to be back. So here we are. So we've got an octopus down through here and the mantas. I mean, the biodiversity within the water. There you see a big bridge, Harbor Bridge. That you'd be driving over there if you started to go north to the Bay of Islands and then all the way up to 90 Mile Beach. I did do that once. I did go all the way up there once upon a time. Now check this out. So there's a hammerhead shark. I have seen a hammerhead once in my life in the Galapagos. When they have them there. Of course, you drive on the left here, and I don't find that hard at all. I mean, I've used to, I owned a car in the UK when I lived there. It's only, and if you come over to my part of it, like in England or in the UK, I find it really quite interesting. Oh, were you talking about the prime minister? Of course, you know, Jacinda was so popular internationally, but she stepped down, and now they have a coalition government here. And in fact, the New Zealand First Party, Trisha, I believe, which is the kind of most nationalist party, is actually led by a Maori fellow. That's an interesting political reality down here as well. Of course, this country was so isolated. But just coming back to the driving, if you're in really crowded places, you just follow the car in front of you. What I find is I just had to remind myself when I was on a country lane, I'd pulled over to have a view or something, pull back out and make sure I kept left instead of right. But for those of you who have never driven on the other side of the road, first of all, it's always a point of principle for me never to say the wrong side because there's no right or wrong in those things. Look at this whale. Um, but but also, I just find that the pedals are the same, right? And if you drive on a stick manually, call it a standard, no, it moves in the same way. It's just using left arm rather than the right. Hey, thanks, Nat. I promise any donations will go directly towards some sort of lamb and beer um, before I go out. So this is welcome to already my welcome to Pocket Park at Hobson Wharf. And Hobson Street is the other kind of main street right up to the middle of Auckland. Really nice street. But this is and again it's I don't need to liken things, but this kind of architecture over on the right here reminds me a little bit, of course, of Canada Place in Vancouver, same sort of style, lovely maritime city. Um, Yeah, I'm gonna stay off the wine here. Because I will be down. So, say my family are in Lowry Bay, which is Lower Hutt, but Wellington call it. But then they call their cabins here batches. They have a batch up in Marlborough County. That's where all of the fantastic, excuse me, New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs come from, which is what I buy. Like Oyster Bay, for example. Um, I buy New Zealand wines at home all the time. Don't know if those my Canadian friends on board, if you've been listening to the news, of course, all these crazy threats of tariffs and all this, has really driven. Oh, there's the boat coming. I just want to show you. Has driven a much more buy Canadian thing. I've never been one of those people, but I'm happy to buy Commonwealth. See, so they've just been out for an hour and a half cruising the harbor. I mean, it looks like a spaceship almost. These ships as they come in. So hopefully they put the sails up when they got out there a ways. Um, so it's fun to see them. Yes. And this, by the way, is the skateboard park. As I think I mentioned yesterday, I was trying to bring bring Finn down, but he has exam today. Actually, he's already had an exam this morning, and then I thought my brother could come and join me because he lived here for a while. He actually took the New Zealand passport out years ago, um, and um, and yeah, but it's been a long time since he was last here. But he's just accepted a new full time job. This whole working thing, by the way, is just so totally overrated. Here's all the maritime flags. Uh, I once read about those, but I couldn't tell you what they mean. But this is a kind of cool thing. Now, instead of having lamb and drinking local beer, I could come and do this with the rest of the day. Of course, we do this because I've taken so many climbing lessons over the year. Over the years, we do the same kind of thing. Rock climbing, practice all the different type of knots. Such a huge part. And by the way, a connection because many of you have joined me on tours in Ireland. Remember that the ropes of the British Empire is the ropes of the British Empire were all made in Belfast, right? And that was the a huge economy there. And of course, the Titanic was built there. Fin Toomey is up in Edmonton, where it's minus 30 degrees at the moment. But he had a friend from Israel staying with him for the weekend. So, but he obviously went to bed early enough in order to do a midterm exam today. Um, yeah, Finn has exams, and he is going down to Australia next month. Of course, he has two grandparents there. Nat. So, thank you for asking. Natalie just asked if there's a Dutch connection. Well, New Zealand, of course, but the Dutch Abel Tasman was probably the first European to come and sail into these shores, but they found the local population quite aggressive. They didn't stay long, but that's why, of course, you get the name New Zealand and Tasmania, right? The Tasman Sea. That's all from the Abel Tasman. It was also the Dutch, and now I'm going to say Abel Tasman, but please correct me if I'm wrong. um, the Dutch were also the first ones to encounter Rapa Nui, which is Easter Island, and it was on Easter Day, ergo the name. Rapa Nui means the navel of the earth. And like I say, I've been to Rapa Nui 5 times in my life. The Maori here, the indigenous people of New Zealand, firmly believe that they came from Rapa Nui, and the Moai, the famous heads that you have on Easter Island, on Rapa Nui out there, they face inwards, and they always faced in towards basically clans, family units, and they recycled family bones underneath them, and they recycled the rock as they grew the Moai. But there's one strip of them that face out, and the theory is they were the ones who left from there and sailed all the way here. Treat yourself and have a look at a map. Find Easter Island, find Pitcairn Island, right? That was the Mutiny on the Bounty. But find these tiny, tiny little dots, specks, and imagine in a double hull canoe paddling the whole way, following currents. I mean, it is often said, I'm going to laugh at that one, Sarah. Um, it's often said, they never got lost. They had to have, and they had to encounter massive storms and all that sort of thing. I mean, just the distances. Well, like I say, you leave Santiago and you fly for 4 hours and 45 minutes to land in Rapa Nui. Then you can fly. There used to be a flight on land Chile all the way to Auckland, but I think you have to go through Sydney now, which is a bit of a shame because I've always wanted to. If you're all interested, it would cost a lot of money, but I want to put on an around the world tour in the Southern Hemisphere. Wouldn't that be perfect? So we could start here in New Zealand. It doesn't really matter, but we can then fly, well, all the way over, however route it is, all the way over to Chile and then Buenos Aires. And then you can fly to South Africa from there, and you fly around to Australia, to Western Australia. I just think that would be a really neat trip to put on. To see how quickly that ship has just come back into the harbor. Anyway, that is a tour that I kind of have on my mind sometime to put together. Even go to Tahiti and the Marquesas. The other thing is Air New Zealand has had packages over the years where you can island hop. Hey, Lorraine, nice to see you. Where you can island hop throughout the Pacific. And some of these places I'd love to go to, like Palau. Of course, Rapa Nui is so famous for having the giant heads. Palau has giant money. Vanuatu had a big earthquake, I think, but it's a country that has always fascinated me too, because they sometimes get rated as the happiest place in the world. My dad has been to Tonga. I've been to Fiji a couple of times, and you go to Tava Uni, the third island of Fiji, and you can do a 3-day hike with no food or water. Why? Because the international date line goes through the middle of it. And so you go at like 2 minutes to midnight and step across it, and you come back, and you've done 3 days. So that's kind of fun. But down here in New Zealand, to do a land tour of New Zealand, because people ask me all the time. People are asking if I'm going to put one on next year, probably 2026. I might look at one of these cruises, and I'm not a huge, huge fan of cruising, but you stop here, do some day tours, then you get down to Wellington, which is a must. I mean, it's such a beautiful city, and then go down the west coast of the South Island, but then sail across to Tasmania, and that's where we had some really good photos in our subscriber group from Tassie just the other day. Port Arthur, that was the penal colony, of course. So really interesting. So that's one way of doing it. But if you wanted to just do a New Zealand tour, then you'd take a few days to drive down to Wellington and then go over to the South Island. I know that back when I used to work for this company I worked for years, our New Zealand tours were holy. 14 or 16 days, even though the distances aren't massive, but the roads are quite slow going. These big buses wouldn't because they're very windy, but there's so much to see. Do you know, Joanne? Of course, my Irish grandmother, who till the day she died spoke with the thickest. Her accent, so she's from Kilbenny, right? So North Cork, but it's more of a Limerick accent. She had those walking tees and everything. But eventually, she was going back to have a visit back to Ireland after after 40 something years down here, and everyone from the family chipped in so she could fly first class, which made a huge difference. She made it to her 98th year and passed in 2008. And say that's the last time I was down here. Hmm. Let's show you this ferry coming. So it is very nice to come back, and family matters. Family matters to me. Yeah. Yes, Fintumi was here at age 6 months, but here they are just back in. I just love it. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we've uh we've come up to a half hour. Yeah, and so do watch. So I'm absolutely in the hands of my family when I'm down there. Um, I mean 100%, but I know that I will have some free time to hang around Wellington. So I'll 100% put up a tour there. If we go and spend 2 or 3 days in Marble County, I mean, it's very small, but I'll totally do one up there too, um, just for the fun of it. So do watch. I just have to show you. There's just a wedding party over there. Um, that's kind of fun. I don't know if it's the pre-party or what it is, but good for them. But you're very welcome, everyone. So thank you for coming along. And it's always nice to pick up a fairly big crowd when I put something up quite last minute. But I ended up with this in the morning, uh, honestly, because I was stretching out and I really a really nice gym at the hotel, but I just can't do a huge amount. As soon as my back's feeling better, but I want to hopefully get down and get some good swimming. So great, ladies and gentlemen. Well, listen, big hugs, and I'll say hi to my family. I'm not sure will my Auntie Trish want to come on a screen. Hey, man, not sure if my uncle Vincent now say there are two girls. One is in Paris and one is in London. So I will see them when I'm over on my next trips over there. So I think that's why they really wanted me to come down for a big birthday because I don't think they had any other young ones from the family. You're very welcome, everyone. Everything's just going to catch me this week. I think I'll turn around back here. All right, everyone. Hey, from Auckland. I don't know when I'll get back here. Let's say next year. So many people ask me for a tour down here. Now, if we want to do it big, then we would fly one way and stop in Fiji for a couple of days. We come to New Zealand, we go over to Australia, and we fly back to Hawaii for a few days. Uh, yes, it's my aunt's big birthday. Now she's born and raised in New Zealand. It was my father came here as an immigrant. His and I lost dad in 2019, but his sister was 17 years younger. But she was always a really great aunt. She always kept really connected to Graham and me. And you know what I haven't found is the Canterbury shop. She used to always send me rugby jerseys for Christmas and everything. So yeah. Hey, Sally Matters, you're very welcome. But thank you for your contributions, everyone. I much appreciate that. And also just keep spreading the word and try and grow this page as much as possible. It'd be just lovely to get it up to thousands and thousands of people. Um, well, I don't know if I should give away my aunt's birthday, but she's older than I am. All right, everyone. Take care. Peace and love. Mr. Pauly, big hugs to you over in Malta. You lucky, lucky man. Um, yeah, I'll go to the Canterbury shop probably down in Wellington first. And I'll go to, is it Te Papa, the National Museum? It's so good. Anyway, I'll watch for some more tours when I get down there. Big hugs. Big hugs to you, Trisha. Nice to see you. All right. All the best. Lots of love.